And thank you so much for taking the time this beautiful Wednesday to be here with us. I have here David Robert, who's actually going to lead the event today. Just a very quick note so that you know who I am, who is talking to you. My name is Paty, and I'm a recruiter at G2I. So for those of you who are our members and know me, hi again. For those of you who aren't, just a quick word. G2I basically is a matching platform for long-term full-time contracts. And our clients are based in the US, so all of the work that we do is fully remote. We focus a lot on developer health. So basically, on top of matching you with a great project, with a great client, we also sometimes offer you or are able to offer you some of the benefits you would normally have if you were employed in your home country. So that's just like a very quick word on G2I. If you're interested in hearing more, please definitely check out our website and send us an application. We'll be very happy to hear from you. Cool. And other than that, just a very quick word about David, who basically was a software developer for 20 years, plus has experience leading and building engineering teams. So like more like leading talent acquisition when it comes to engineers. Hence the perfect unicorn, who has kind of knowledge from both sides of the river. David also published a book, which I'll mention a little bit at the end, if you're interested in any of the topics that he touches on, and to just go a little bit more in depth. So what David is basically going to talk about today is he's going to give us a little bit of an insight into how recruitment works, what it is that us recruiters do, what it is that matters to us, why are we important, perhaps, David? We'll see. But also what it is that you can do to catch our attention. So how to stand out on a paper, how to write a good resume, how to write a good application. And then from there on, we'll talk a little bit about interviews as well. So now when you're in touch with the client, what it is that you should do to make them love you. We'll talk a little bit about networking, and also we'll touch a little on the whole remote culture, and how you can make yourself stand out in today's world. I hope I didn't forget any of the important points, David.
No, that's good.
Perfect. Cool. Well, then I'm just going to give the stage over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming along to listen. I hope what I've got to say is of value, and I hope to make it as entertaining as possible. Feel free to ask me questions. If we can jump into questions during the call, but if not, if you have questions afterwards, please feel free to message me, that sort of thing. So I think you've heard the most important points about me. My name's David. I've been a software developer for 20-something years. Once a developer, always a developer, I guess. And then I like to say I was tricked into becoming a recruiter. And no one really makes that leap knowingly, I guess. So I thought after 20-something years that I knew and understood how this game works. I've interviewed a lot for jobs, got some of them, and I've interviewed developers for my teams, and I've built lots of software development teams. So I thought over that time that I knew how the game worked. And then when I became a recruiter and when I watched teams of recruiters and how they work, that's when I really started to realize that I knew nothing about this game. And I realized I could have played it very differently and had a lot more success. Not that I didn't have some success, but I realized I could have been more efficient in how I applied for things, how I presented myself, and maybe got some better offers, maybe got different opportunities. So there's a lot of people out there at the minute that are making lots of applications and it's falling on deaf ears. Lots of rejection, lots of ghosting going on, which is always a hot topic. And I want to try and give you some ideas about how to stand out a little bit better. That's kind of the title of my book. That's kind of my mantra, is standing out in tech. And for me, like I said, when I became a recruiter and had this realization, I think you have to start with, how does recruitment actually work? Because recruiters at this stage are your customers, and the customer is always right. So rather than, you know, us getting upset as developers saying recruiters need to learn more about tech and recruiters need to do more, these things aren't going to happen. These things are out of our control. What we can control, what we can do, is learn more about what they want, what the customer wants, and start to play their game, start to get more of their attention. Because if you can get more of their attention, as we'll discuss, then you'll get more interviews. If you get more interviews, the chances are you're going to get far more job offers. And that's what we're here for, hopefully. So the first thing about recruitment is it's a speed game. We all like to think that we send someone our resume, we send someone our LinkedIn profile, and they read it in depth. They're poring over it thinking this is the best thing I've ever read. It's not. They're not going to spend much time. As if you do any market research as to, you know, asking other developers, where are you applying for jobs? Usually they're all applying in the same places. So for any given job out there, if it's an exciting job, especially, there's going to be lots of applicants. And recruitment is usually around trying to beat a competitor to fill a position. You know, that job might go out to multiple agencies. So the quicker that the recruiter can get their developers that they trust and believe in front of the client, the more chances they have of getting paid and actually having some success. So if a lot of people are applying and they're looking through all these profiles, they've only got a certain amount of time to spend on each one, and it's usually on that first scanning through, it's a matter of seconds. I like to say it's like Tinder for jobs. It's open up like you would do if you did a Google search. You do a Google search for something, you open up lots and lots of tabs, you do a 10-second read of each page so you can decide which page am I going to leave open and read in more detail. The game that you need to start playing is you want your tab to stay open. When they open your LinkedIn profile, they don't just go, not sure, no, because they've probably got lots of other profiles to go through. So your profile has to be efficient in telling me what you do. And this is the main problem with most of your profiles when I look at them, because I review profiles all day, every day. I look at it, and as developers, we don't like to pigeonhole ourselves and say, this is just what I do. I could do anything. I could learn any language. I can do any framework. But much like a Google search, people aren't searching for a developer that can do anything usually. They come along to a recruiter, maybe Paty can back me up on this, they come along with some very specific requirements. I need someone who does this, this, and this, and ideally a little bit of this and this. And that's what they're doing, is looking through your profile and seeing how many of those things can I tick off. So when I present you forward and they say, why are you sending me this person? There's a handful of reasons why. You asked for this, and here's the evidence. They asked for this, and here's the evidence. Your job is to make that evidence as easy as possible to get to.
Exactly.
So, awesome. So the first thing I like to do is just to say your profile needs to be efficient. Don't think about someone reading it. Think about someone scanning it, because 90% of people are going to get rejected just by that 10-second scan of your profile. So can I glean enough information to make me confident you can do the job without me having to trawl through all the fields and actually read in depth? So I'm going to be scanning for the text, scanning for a definition of what you do. And like I said, their searches are very specific, and the person searching through it is often not technical. And this is where, you know, as developers, we say the recruiter should learn more tech. You know, imagine that recruiter might be hiring for React in the morning and Node in the afternoon. It might be Python at some stage. It might be DevOps. It might be a designer. So if this recruiter needs to learn more about all of these technologies, they're probably not going to be a recruiter for very long. They're going to go and work for Microsoft or Netflix or somewhere and get paid a bit more money. So you need to think about the person reading it. They're going to look for these buzzwords. They're going to look for the evidence as quickly as possible. And you need to make them feel confident that you can do the job, because they need to, when they present you forward, often it's presenting to the client, or sometimes it's to a second layer of a more technical vetting. And they say, why did you put this person forward? They've got evidence to back it up. This is why I'm putting this person forward. They tick all of these boxes. So your profile and how you present is paramount, and you've got to make it efficient. So I always start with LinkedIn, and this would apply to if you're filling in a G2I profile, the same thing. You apply the same principles. And I always say it's the same on your resume as well. Lots of people will tell you to do your resume very different. In my experience, most recruiters are opening up something like your resume last, just to have a sense check between your LinkedIn and your resume to say, do these match up? Is there any anomalies in there? Can I use it to send forward to the client, or can I take bits out of it? Hopefully you've taken those bits out of it when you made your G2I profile to make the bits sing as best as possible. But going back to LinkedIn, this is where you should start thinking about maximizing all of the opportunities. And when I say opportunities, there are certain fields you fill in. The one you probably miss straight off the bat is the banner image. Most people don't use a banner image, or if you do, you've probably got a picture of your last holiday, maybe a pet, maybe a cup of coffee, something like that. But this is of no value to anybody. No one cares. What would be nice is if you said, you know, I'm a React to Node developer. There was when it opened up, it's got your face on it and a React logo and a Node logo. It's an immediate telling that person, this is what you're looking for. Keep this tab open. Next thing will come down to something like your headline. And most headlines, like we say, we like to go, I'm a front-end developer, back-end developer, full-stack developer, programmer, coder, software engineer, software developer. None of these things actually help the recruiter. They want to know, okay, great, you're a full-stack developer, but what stack? Because I need a Node and React person, or I need a Python person. What do you do? And this is where, if you're trying to hedge your bets and go, I can do anything, think that person's going to go, I've got 1,000 applicants here. I'm going to go to someone who's telling me more quickly what they do. And if they're good, then I'll stay with them. Otherwise, I've got to ask you, what do you do? Or I've got to spend more time reading. So the more efficient you can make it, the better. So you can say full stack developer, you can say front-end engineer, but including Node and React, or React if you're front end, giving them an indication, this is why you should be finding me. It's just another confirmation you're in the right place. After that,
David, sorry to interrupt you. What do you think about some of the profiles that in their title, they actually put some of the buzzwords, or like more buzzwords or more hashtags? Is that helpful, or is that rather annoying for the recruiter?
I would say it's usually extremely valuable, but I wouldn't put a massive long list. I'd put your top 2 or 3. Which 2 or 3 becomes really important. We'll talk about this later as well. But I like to say that there's usually accompanying technologies. So it's like when more recently, when I was hiring Node developers, pretty much every Node job I was getting had a requirement for serverless technologies, AWS Lambda or something like that. Mm-hmm. And often you'd be having to ask that developer, you've got Node, but by any chance, do you do Lambda? Have you got anything? And they go, oh, yes, I've got lots of it. But you didn't think to mention it. And this is where you can actually do some research and go, what are the most common skills that go along with my job? So if you go and look at all the Node jobs that are open, what's the most commonly requested skills that go with it? And you want to tick the most common ones straight off the bat. If you want to put more in, that's what your about section is for. So you've made the headline, you've made the statement, you've made the claims, is what I like to say. This is what I do. This is why you should find me. And now the rest of your profiles, everything else is about evidencing that, because a claim without any evidence is just empty words. So in your about section, it's embellishing what you've put in the headline. What technologies are you using? Not just like the main languages, but are you using any testing libraries? Are you using any like serverless technologies? Those sorts of things. Back up what the claims that you've made. Most people use their about section to tell me, you know, how much you like coffee, how much you like cats, all those sorts of things. This doesn't help you at this stage. If you want to be nice and write nice things, that's great, but we need to hit them with the evidence first so they keep the tab open, and then they'll start to read it in more depth. Don't tell them about your favorite color first. That can come later on. So we hit them with the tech, hit them with the reasons to stay with you at this stage. And then after that, they're going down to your experiences. And when a recruiter's usually looking at your experiences, they're thinking, okay, I'm finding you for Node or React. I'm asking myself 3 questions. When did you start using those technologies? Are you currently using those technologies? And how frequently can I see you using them? Because that every time I see it, it builds my confidence. I can say, look, you asked for them. I can see all of these instances. And that's when listing the tech on each of your jobs is really important, because each time I see it, I get more interested. And if you're saying I'm a Node developer, but I can't see that you've used Node in the last 5 years, I'm starting to get nervous. I'd have to ask you. Anytime a recruiter has to ask you, I call it a gap. And it means I've got to email you something, or I've got to jump on a call. I don't want to jump onto a call because my time is short and I've got a lot of people to get through. And if I jump into that call and you say, yeah, I used to use that technology, but now I've moved on. Inside my head as a recruiter, I'm screaming, thinking, please get off the call as fast as possible, because I need to get onto other people. Otherwise, I'm not going to get paid, or my boss is going to shout at me, or all those sorts of things. So I might have to email you. We live in a remote world nowadays. This email back and forth might take 24 hours. I might not have 24 hours. And I might think I'm just going to skip you and I'll come back if I don't find anybody else in the pile that's being more specific. But that's a very dangerous game to play. You don't want them to skip you because you haven't made something very clear. Make it very clear, put it in your experiences. If they like, they on your LinkedIn profile or your G2I profile, wherever you're trying to stand out, then they're going to look for evidence. They're going to look for things you can show to support those claims. And this is where they might go to your GitHub profile, they might go to your portfolio website, they might go to your blog, whatever you're doing. But then when I get to people's portfolio website, it's all very shiny and everything moves and it's all very fluid, probably doesn't tell me what you do. And it's like, why not apply that same principle as your LinkedIn profile? Hit me in the face going, this is what I do. You came from my LinkedIn thinking this is what I do. And yep, I'm confirming it over here. We like to repeat this information so that they know and feel more confident that I'm definitely got the right kind of candidate here. I'm getting closer and closer. If they get to GitHub, as developers, we love GitHub and we think all recruiters love it. Recruiters do not love GitHub. They don't understand it. They're scared of it. They want to get back to LinkedIn where they feel safe and warm. So they get to GitHub and all they're doing is trying to tick the boxes. So when you get to your GitHub, and I encourage you to open your GitHub if you're with a screen available now. Open your GitHub. Do you have the same profile picture? This sounds trivial, but the same profile picture, because lots of people type in the URL for their GitHub wrong, in which case I have to search and find you. The same profile picture usually helps because I can know the same person. Can you imagine how many David Roberts there are on GitHub? There's a lot. So finding that person, if I struggle to find you, I'm just going to move on. The bio, most people don't even put a bio on GitHub because it's more technical. But this is where you should be mirroring LinkedIn. Don't have to rethink things, just confirming again exactly what you said on LinkedIn. That's why you came here. I'm confirming it again. After that, it's down to your pinned repositories. If you haven't pinned your repositories, why? We need to make it really clear. But then when you pin them, they come up in little boxes and there's a little description. Now we like to be technical and just say, we like to a bit more high level. We like to say, this is my project which helps me manage my fantasy football league or something like that. No one cares at this stage. What the recruiter is trying to do is they go, what technology are you using? And you can't sometimes just rely on the language that's used in that repository, because it might just say JavaScript. Is that a React repository? I don't know. But what you're thinking is the person could look inside that repository and find out. A recruiter, if we remember, is most of the time not technical. So they're not going to dig into the repository. They're scared, remember? So we need to just make it really clear. And again, it's like your experiences on LinkedIn. Every time they can see that you're using those technologies makes them feel more confident. The furthest a recruiter might go is they'll open the repositories tab, which shows what you've been working on in chronological order. And what they're doing is the exact same thing that they did on LinkedIn. I'm looking for those technologies again. When did you start using them? Are you currently using them? And how frequently can I see it? Because it just builds my confidence. So that's pretty much how to stand out on paper. You need to make it very clear and you need to direct them, funnel them towards showing them evidence that you can do the job, showing your proactivity. If we funnel them over to GitHub and you funnel them over to a side project, that's great. What I would encourage you to do is, rather than hoping that they click through and get there, is try and drag some of that value back over to LinkedIn. And this is where you can start talking about what you're doing, what you're coding, what you're writing, what you're learning, all those things on LinkedIn, because recruiters love LinkedIn. Or, if you're doing it as a G2I profile, this is where you need to cram things like, what you're working on, what you're learning into your biography, into your bio, so you can say, this is why you should be interested in me. Kind of hit those points and make them really clear, make it easy for a recruiter to make a decision. So I've covered the resume, the CV. I think that should always be exactly the same. And then the subject I like to talk about is UX. So if they arrive at your GitHub, do you drive them to LinkedIn? If they arrive at your G2I profile, can they get to GitHub? Can they get all the way around? No matter where someone finds you, they should be able to flow to all the way through all your profiles with ease. So they might be able to get somewhere, but can they get back? Make it very, very easy for them to find your evidence and also move in between evidences. So that's how to stand out on paper. I know I've only got a few minutes, so I'm going to go fast. Acing interviews. It's difficult to advise you on interviews because people interview you in different ways. Some like to give you, a grilling in terms of questions. Some like to give you a whiteboarding session. Some people have some other kind of technical tests. Some just ask you, have a nice conversation. Difficult to advise you what to do. I get comfortable with tests. I get comfortable with that environment of doing those things. But in most cases, people are, and certainly if someone's hiring you for the long term, full-time positions, then they're making more of an emotional investment than anything else. They need to know that you're at a certain level, and sometimes they need to know what you don't know. So sometimes getting something wrong is not necessarily a bad thing. You're just telling them what level you're at, what things you do know, and they might go, that's not important, we can teach you that bit. So it's more important for you to go in there, smile, and be a decent person. But an interview is a very stressful environment, and we all behave very strangely. So people often say, remember like 10 questions to ask. And I think this is a bad idea, because you get in there, you start sweating, and you remember nothing. And if you do have questions, by the end of the interview, the person's probably covered off most of them. And then they say, have you got anything else you want to ask? And you go, oh, and it's a really awkward moment. So I say to remember one question, and remember that one question and ask it at the very start. So you're going to ask, why is this job open? Now, this does two things for me. One, it changes it from being an interrogation into a conversation and allows you to calm down a little bit, because now there's a bit of back and forth. And this actually builds a relationship, and it allows them to see that you're a nice person to talk to. So everyone starts to calm down, and you start to stand out, because normally people just sit there like a mute, just wait, and you're terrified about the next question. Will I know the answer? This way, it's more conversation. So it's a great way to settle yourself. Next thing is, whatever they say, you're going to use for every answer that you give in the rest of the interview. So they might tell you that the project is behind schedule, and so that's why they're hiring. And you're now going to talk about your career, and no matter what they say, you're going to keep referencing projects that were behind schedule and you got back on track. Going back to the missing technologies conversation that we talked about earlier, they might say, it's a Node and React job, but we had someone who did GraphQL or serverless stuff or whatever it was that's left the company. Now, you were going to talk to them for an hour about Node and React, not realizing that the real value on your resume, the real value to you, is your knowledge on whatever that thing that was missing. That's why you're in the room. So now you can start talking about those technologies and all of the projects where you use them, focusing on their problem, what they're trying to fix. Now you're not just another Node and React developer. You're the answer to all their problems. You're the answer to their prayers. You're the solution for the missing technology. So asking them why they're hiring, they'll start to give you insights as to why you're in the room. And that's the other thing I would say in terms of questions that come up, is to think, why am I in the room? So no matter what they ask you, if it's like, tell me about yourself, people like to go, oh, my name's David, I like football, and this. I always think, why waste the opportunity? What they're really saying is, with this job in mind, and that's how you should caveat every question, with this job in mind, tell me about yourself. You're starting to, what you need to do is give them reasons. This is why I'm in the room. This is why you like my profile. This is why I'm the answer to this position. So start to caveat all the questions and bring yourself back to not just talking, but talking with purpose, talking about why you're the solution. Networking, how to network. The problem I see with people networking right now is everyone's out there just sending connection requests, blind connection requests, and hoping that someone somewhere along the line is going to save them. This is not really of value to me. For me, if you're going to network, I would be thinking about either finding people who are talking about the technology that you want to work with, or finding people that work at a company you want to work for and starting to follow them on LinkedIn or on your social media platform of choice. LinkedIn is a good one for this, but follow them, hit that notification bell, so whenever they post, you get notified about their post or their comment, and then you're going to try and add value to that every time. Now, when I say add value, we don't just say thanks for posting. This doesn't help anybody, but you're going to try to contribute, try to add to that conversation. Now, what happens if you keep doing this and repeating this, every time they're posting, you're adding value, you become known for that technology. You get so you're starting to network organically about the tech that you want to be known for, and possibly within those companies that you want to be found by. After 2, 3, 4, 5 of you adding value to someone's post, it's more likely that they will either send you a connection request or they won't mind you sending one, because now there is a relationship, there is a connection, there is a reason for you to both be connected and continue this conversation, because you're already adding value. That's the way I would advise you to start networking. I would also tell you to start generating content. This is when I said about the activity on LinkedIn. We're trying to flesh out our profile and show that we're a proactive, engaged developer. It's not just I've got qualifications. We need to unpack the value of those qualifications. So when a recruiter arrives at your profile, they see not only do you have the qualifications, have some of the experience, but you talk about this tech all day. You live and breathe it. So I'll be creating content, I'll be adding value to other people's content, and I'll be finding companies that are of interest and trying to get talking to them by following them and talking to them that way. The last subject I wanted to talk about, I know I've been very quick, but the last subject was going remote. I've interviewed thousands of developers for remote roles and hired hundreds, and I always see the same mistakes. One of them we've actually talked about earlier, which was about the technologies. When someone's going remote, when a company's wanting to hire remote, they go for usually 2 reasons. One, to reduce the salary and hire someone from a different location. The other one is they're looking for something specific in terms of a skill set. So this is where you might be a Node developer, you might be a React developer, but it's rarely that they're just trying to find a Node or React developer, because there's probably lots of those, but they're realizing I can't find someone with Node and Lambda. I can't find someone with React and this, whatever it is. So it's always those little nuances, and that's why it's a good idea to try and find those complementary skills so that you can present those. But that's why that they're looking for someone more remote. And then they're open to this thing, but they want their pound of flesh. They want to know that you can do these things. So starting to unpack your skills and present it in a better way, that you're actually, more of a fit for their job, is a really powerful thing. The next thing is, when people go remote, they think everyone's open to you being a nomad. They're not. Lots of companies are. I know G2I are very much open to this, but clients are still nervous about the remote situation. So when you take the interview, when you take it in a cafe in the middle of a busy city somewhere and no one can hear you, yes, it's cool. Yes, you've got a very nice cup of coffee. Yes, there's a very busy road in the background that shows, you're in a vibrant city. But if I can't hear you, and if I'm worried that, you sat on the beach and you're going to finish the interview and just go swimming, it makes me, the client, nervous that you're not really engaged in this role. You're just trying to live, you're just trying to get me to support your nomad life. So often trying to present yourself as boring, really, try to present yourself as a professional ready for work, actually does stand out. So even though you are a digital nomad, even though you are remote, even though you do have a wonderful life and you're able to do these things from wherever you want to be, you don't have to rub their faces in it. Don't give them a reason to be nervous. Also, when you're doing an interview, most people don't really think about what they're wearing, and I always say you can mirror what the company's does look at their social media, and if they're smart, you're smart. But the main thing is, don't make what you're wearing be the main conversation point. Keep the conversation point about you. So if you turn up half naked, and people do, then the conversation is going to be about that. And you want to keep the conversation on your professional skills. So try and appear like you're a professional ready for work.
Absolutely, David. Thank you for saying that. I cannot count on the times that somebody joined from a tram or from a bus or a side of the road. Sorry, I'm in a car. No.
Or in a darkened room, wearing a hood, all these things. Make sure, don't distract from the conversation, which is you're a talented professional, and that's the sort of thing you want to present. The other thing is, as developers, we like to think that everyone's, we're generalists. We can do any language, framework, and all those sorts of things. Like I say, when someone's going remote, they're going remote to find something specific in terms of tech. So you just saying you're a generalist is usually not the way to go. They're looking for someone who's very experienced, very focused on something. They're looking for a solution. They're not looking for just a random person, because there's lots of random people. So being more specific about what you do and why you're passionate about and evidencing it is a really powerful way to start. I think I've been through the list. I said I'd do it in 30 minutes. That's 32. I'm close, right?
I mean, come on. I took about 2 minutes of an intro, so I think you did it in exactly 30 minutes, which I would expect nothing less of an engineer. Thank you very much. Perfect. Let's take a couple of minutes for some questions. So I really hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Jedediah, I'm really sorry if I'm butchering it, sent us a really good one. So what happens if you have worked through many or with many technologies, with many different stacks? Which ones are the ones that you mention in the bio or in the tagline?
So
how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I often contradict myself on these things. Ideally you focus on the thing you want to be found for, but as developers we move tech all the time, and that's life in development. Just when you think this, there's a new technology to learn, there's a new language, there's a new framework, there's a new something, and it's okay to have multiple things, multiple technologies on there. But like I kind of alluded to earlier, they are claims. And if you're saying Java and Python and Node, then you're making a claim for those technologies. Now, if you've got no evidence to back it up, I would drop it. If you do have evidence, you need to make that evidence clear and available and efficient for someone to find. So the burden of proof is on you. No matter what you claim in your headline and about section or your bio on G2I, you need to then think, okay, that's what I'm saying. I need to provide evidence for that. So it's a great thing to have multiple technologies. Certainly when you get into the more senior levels, having a background in different technologies is really powerful. But you need to remember that the burden of proof is on you.
Absolutely, that's a good one. And I actually would probably add one more thing. It happened to me many, many times that somebody claims they're React and Angular developer, and then I reach out about an Angular job, and they're like, I actually don't really want to work with Angular anymore.
So this is what I call gaps, right? So, and that exchange probably took 24 hours for them to tell you no. And it's like, well, so you do have it. And this is where you might have multiple technologies, but if you don't want to be found for it, don't make the claim. It's still there in your experience. It's still there in your GitHub. It's still there as part of your DNA. But if you don't want to be known for it, if you've moved on and don't want to be found for it, don't make the claim.
Absolutely. It's completely true that as recruiters, we check kind of the most recent experience against what you claim in your bio or in your tagline. And like, I want to see, okay, if you're a React developer, is it what you're working with now? Was it your last project? Yeah. So it's good to have multiple tech stacks, but just talk about the ones that you want to be found for. Good point. Awesome. Perfect. Piotr actually sent us a good question. Really interesting one. If I write all the things I can and want to do, all the technologies, all the types of projects, all the type of positions, wouldn't it make it hard to scan the profile for a recruiter?
If you write all the things,
like everything that you want to focus on, like you were mentioning at the very beginning, of like all the group of technologies and related skills. Wouldn't it make it hard?
So I normally say, because when people think about a resume, a LinkedIn profile, a G2I profile, any profile about you, most people see this as a document which is a snapshot in time. It's a document which looks back, it looks at your past. And I would say it shouldn't be just that. The experience section does look back. That's where you've been and what you've done, and you should include all the technologies. Your headline and about section on your LinkedIn profile should look forward. So I wouldn't be using the about section to list all the things you can do. I'd be listing the things you want to do, the things you want to be found for. So that makes it very efficient to, to list those things, because someone's arriving at your profile because they found you, because you applied for a job, because they came across your profile thinking you can do this. And then it's up to you to hit me in the face and go, yes, I do it. You do it with a banner image, you do it with a headline, you do it with an about section. And if I go, oh, this person looks interesting, I'm going to leave this tab open until I get a magical number. And then, so the things you can do, that's covered by, your past, that's covered by your project, it's covered by your experience and things like that. But if you don't want to do it, I wouldn't say it. If you've got a massive amount of things you can do and a massive amount of things you want to do, I think you need to, start thinking about, do you really want to do all of them? Like, what's next? Help somebody out, because otherwise, it's not the danger that no one believes you can do them. It's the thing that Paty just said, which is, I've got to ask you the question: which one? You're saying 3 of them. Which one is it? And if you tell me no, you don't want to do the one I'm looking at you for, then it's a danger and it's a waste of my time. And that's dangerous enough. But if I've got 30, 40, 100 or 1,000 other applicants who are going to spell it out, I'm going to go with them first, and I'll come back if I need you. Now that's a dangerous game to play. So what I normally say is, usually there's like 1,000 people apply to a job, 900, because how many are going to get interviewed? 10, 20? That means they're just going to scan through all these profiles really quickly and see which one we're going to leave open. So that means 980, 990 of you are going to get rejected by a recruiter who's not technical and didn't read your profile in depth. You just didn't make it clear. You were hedging your bet, saying, I'm a full stack developer that can do anything, and I can do, I want to do them all. Now you're leaving the work to me to have to ask you, and I might not have the time. I probably don't have the time.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you, David. We have another one from Petar, who seems to be a person who actually likes educating on LinkedIn. So who's actually using LinkedIn to basically share tips and advice. How do you stand out when you do that? How do you do that effectively?
Sharing code tips. So I think there's 2 things. Most people, when they start teaching something, we all like, as you can probably gather from this call, I like the sound of my own voice. I talk a lot, and that works maybe in this environment, but it's not going to work on LinkedIn. Nobody wants to read your big long post. Nobody wants, like you said, your about section. No one wants to read about how much you like cats and coffee and whatever, where you went on your last holiday. Someone's reading it for a very specific reason. And if someone's going to read your content, I see lots of people writing their coding tips, and they write 2 or 3 paragraphs of intro about what they do and how they're doing it and what they had for breakfast. And then there's the coding snippet. So it's like when I'm advising people to share their journey, it's the same advice. I go, you've probably got a notepad that you write things you need to remember in, or you keep a digital version of it. But so when someone's learning, they write in a notepad. When you write to yourself, you cut out all of the fluff, all of the nice conversation, and you just put the raw value, the thing that someone needs. And your coding tip is that raw value. Don't hide it under the conversation, which you think people want to engage in, but they probably don't. If they're going to be there to follow you because you're educating them on coding tips, keep it educational. Pepper in a few posts that are conversational and nice. Everyone likes to know that you're a human being. But if you're making it difficult for them to get to the value, and this is kind of the essence of this whole discussion, if you're hiding your value, people are going to go somewhere else where people make it easier. So I would say strip it down, think about what's the most important point of what you're saying, what's the reason why someone's going to read it, make that first. This also then applies for someone doing your about section, doing your bio on G2I. It's like, don't start with the fluff and put the value last, put the value first, otherwise people might stop reading.
Absolutely. I agree with that so much. Also, because we're living in a world of social media and scrolling, I'm just, I'm used to reading posts, and I like reading posts that give me the information that I'm looking for immediately. Okay, that, the dopamine hit or whatever. If I'm going to have to read through a long post that even has the option of like unroll more, I'm not gonna unroll more unless I'm already engaged. So yeah, 100% that. And tell me why I'm reading it at the beginning. Perfect. Cool. Again from Jedediah. Would not having a LinkedIn be a red flag? No, my instinct as a recruiter, but
Yes.
you tell me.
LinkedIn is kind of, the spiritual home of the recruiter. As developers, we think that the resume was going to be taken over by GitHub. You do the README and do this. The problem is, again, this is more about business. It's understanding your customer. And if we're developers trying to attract the attention of recruiters, most of us are going that route, or traditionally do. As there are other platforms you can use, but if we're going down that route, then the recruiters just want to be somewhere where they feel safe. And you not having a LinkedIn profile, you can not have a LinkedIn profile, but you're going to have to produce a resume. And like I said at the start, I think that the resume and the LinkedIn profile should be exactly the same. So I would say, why not have one? I normally say to people, work on your LinkedIn profile first, because this is what the recruiter is going to look at first. And then once you've written it, you can mimic the structure. It's got a banner image, it's got a headline, it's got an about section, it's got this, and you mimic it and drag that across. I would say when you're doing your G2I profile, you've got a bio to fill in to explain yourself, and that needs to be powerful. Well, hopefully, you can either take that powerful statement you're going to make and mirror that on LinkedIn, or take what you've done on LinkedIn and mirror that there. They should be almost doing the same thing. It's your value condensed, the reason to keep reading and reason to go and explore more. So I would say, yes, it is a bit of a red flag. It's not a red flag. It's not like people think negative of you. They just might skip it and go somewhere that's easier.
Yeah, we actually have a very kind of related question, because Natalie actually asked if there is anywhere else us recruiters hang out, because she feels like LinkedIn nowadays is more like Facebook and Twitter combined, so not a very professional atmosphere. And actually, Jedediah said the same thing, that they didn't like the atmosphere on LinkedIn. I'm a recruiter. I don't like the atmosphere on LinkedIn. I can tell you that much. It's not a fun place to be at sometimes.
No one likes LinkedIn. It serves a purpose for you. I guess the question goes to you then, Paty. Where do you hang out?
So, I mean, I can answer it this way. I think David said it very well. It's not a red flag. It's not something that you're doing wrong. It is, however, making the possibility of me skipping you a little higher. When I look for candidates, I first look through the ones that apply. So great, send me a resume, then I don't need LinkedIn, fine. But if it didn't apply, I'm going to look through LinkedIn first. Only then I'm going to go through a GitHub, I'm going to go through Stack Overflow. Those are all places that we can look for candidates in. But there's a very high chance that I've already found what I needed on LinkedIn. So if you're only hanging out on Stack Overflow or GitHub, I'm probably not going to get to you.
And that's what I'd say about, when people start to put out content, start to document their journey. As developers, we go to, Hashnode or Dev2, or we go to the places where developers hang out. And I would say to you, your customer is on LinkedIn. So we don't like LinkedIn, but if it's where your customers are, it's like just if you just started up a shop selling shoes, you know, you're going to put it where the customers are, and you're going to market where the customers are. There's no point taking it to a place where people don't wear shoes and hoping for the best. It's just think about your customer, and you're thinking, most people are thinking, my customer is the person who's going to hire me. And if that's the case, then you need to think about where that person is. And if you're applying direct to companies and doing that, great, then you have a different strategy. But if you're trying to entice recruiters, where do they hang out? And it's usually LinkedIn.
Absolutely, I cannot agree more. And just, I mean, brace yourself. I know it's not the nicest environment, so just good luck to everyone hanging out on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, David. This was super, super helpful, very insightful. As I said, you are an author of a book. So if anyone is interested in diving a little deeper in all of the things that you said, and probably tons more, if I'm not mistaken, the title of your book is Standing Out in Tech, right?
Yes, there is a book, and then I've got a video course for the same content. The video course comes with the book as well. I can give you a discount code as well to get 50% off the video course.
That would be lovely. If you can just, probably Thea is our lovely community manager, is going to send out a write-up of everything that happened today. So if you are so nice to offer a discount code for our members, they can probably get that there. Thank you, David. Thank you, Thea, for the amazing job of organizing this, even though we cannot see you. We know you're there, and moderating. And thank you, everyone, for joining. It was a pleasure having you. And as always, let's continue the